We would like to apologize for the week-long delay, but I had a beautiful, awesome vacation. So without any further ado, Albino Corn, Sunset Time, 3, Chapter 15, Memories Awake. What? But why? Wah, you can't be serious. Told you wouldn't agree to this, Sunset said with smug satisfaction. The small hospital room was crowded with her colorful friends, most of them sporting bandages in various places. The sight of them, in spite of their tubular faces, had made Sunset's heart sink and greatly diminished any feeling of victory she had harbored. Still, their determination was to be admired. The second Twilight had told them she wanted them to return to Camelot, they broke into a clamor of protest. Twilight stamped a hoof against the floor, demanding for silence. Girls! Girls! Please! Just listen! As everyone quieted down, Applejack finished with, "While Equestria, would you want us to go back to Camelot now, Twilight? You know we work best when we're together." "Yes, that's true," Twilight hesitated, eyes flickering about the room. "But the Tempest crown needs to be placed somewhere safe. I think it would be wise if a full party delivered it to the princesses while someone scouted ahead." Twilight put on a forced smile. Applejack raised an eyebrow high. "Are you just happy to let yourself as the one get going, knowing that Vesperia seems to have a vendetta against you, and not knowing where the last place of the regalia is?" The corners of Twilight's mouth flicked downward. "Well, no, I just..." "What's the real reason, Twilight?" She stood paralyzed by everyone's gaze, her smile completely fading like the illusion it had been. She lowered her head to the floor until it looked like she was bowing to all of them. "Sunset," she began, "you said you couldn't let me fight Vesper alone. Well, I can't let any of you fight her on my behalf. I want you girls to keep trying to defend me, not from her or Griffins or anything else. I just want you all to be safe." After a long pause, Applejack said, "Amazing." Twilight looked up, straight tears running down her face. "What?" "It's amazing how even when you're being selfish, you still manage to be selfish." Applejack smiled. "What?" "Seriously, Twilight," Rainbow said, taking over for Applejack. "You're our best friend, but you need to get through your thick egghead skull that we're sticking with you no matter what. Besides that, we're not just doing this for you. Vesper Radiance is threatening all of Equestria. Heck, she's threatening the entire world. In case you haven't noticed, we live here too." She poked Twilight on the shoulder. "Yeah, we fight together as friends, but we're fighting for Equestria, not just for you, princess." Randy nodded in agreement. "Twilight, we all appreciate your concern, and I'd be more worried if you didn't show a little of apprehension. But we're all adults here. We knew perfectly well what we were getting into when Princess Celestia gave us this mission. And yes, a lot of things not gone as planned. Yes, most of us have sustained a few injuries, but that just means we have to be more careful from here on in. We have to fight smarter, not harder. And most importantly, we have to stick together. I know," Twilight sniffled, while Spike ran across her mane. "You're probably right. It's just... I saw how badly she was hurting all of you. If Sunset hadn't helped me with that shield spell, then you could have..." Applejack handed her a tissue. "Twilight, when face danger, do more times than a rail's sake, so you should say it. Yeah, I'm not saying we're all used to it, but I am used to pressing forward when things get tough. Like Rarity said, we just gotta buck up and stick together. You gotta trust we can handle ourselves." "Twilight, sorry," said Lars the Saucers. No, I do trust you girls. I do. It's Vesper Radiance I don't trust. I know all of you can fend for yourself, but she's... Rainbow raised a hoof. "Yeah, she can do super spells and is a bit tough in the head. Yeah, we may take a little beating, but you can't expect us to turn tail right away just because we got hurt. That's probably what she wants. And at least we now know we won't be caught off guard when we run into her again." "Implying we'll actually run into her again," Rarity said. A shadow crossed over Sunset's face. "Trust me, we'll see her again." The scene of Vesper sinking beneath the waves in a frozen tomb sat firmly in Sunset's mind. But in her heart, she knew it was too good to last. A mere freezing spell wouldn't subdue the power of the Alcorn amulet. "But Rainbow is right," Sunset continued. "We've seen firsthand just how strong Vesper is. So next time, we'll be ready for her." She looked at the medical tube attached to her arm. "I hope." Twilight sat up straight and took in a deep breath. Girls are right. We need to work together. That's how we've overcome every obstacle so far. She folds her ears back. I'm sorry for trying to get you girls to go home. I guess I was being a little selfish, thinking you were just fighting for me. Sorry. Pinky slid over and wrapped a hoof around Twilight's shoulder. Aw, that's okay, Twilight. That being me just got you confused. She doesn't know what it's like to have friends, so she wanted to make you feel as lonely as she is. Sunset leaned forward onto her bed. How did you do that? It was scary how Pinky had identified part of what Sunset had been feeling when she first saw her Fizz's doppelganger. Use her eyes, past all the crazy. Pinky wiggled her hose around and spun her eyes in sockets. Crazy eyes aside, Rarity said, now that we're all on the same page, the question is, where do we go from here? Twilight used the wing to rub her chin. I haven't had a chance to give it much thought. Going back to Camelot is a valid option to keep the crown safe in the meantime. But it feels like a step in the wrong direction. I'm pretty sure we've all exhausted all our resources regarding any history of Regalia that was recorded. And if Vesper already knows where to go, that would put us way behind her. Applejack hummed in quiet meditation. So we're looking for those horseshoe thingies now, right? Says it none. Deep Sea and hoof guards. Right. Well, I've been thinking about an old bedtime story Granny Smith used to tell me and Big Mike. The more I'll think about it, the more I'll think it might give us a clue to where those horseshoes are. Anything will help at this point, Spike said. Applejack took her hat off and placed it against her chest. Well, the story goes like this. One of my ancestors, Bubba Crumple's his name, was picked to go on an important mission by Duke Puddingcup. He and any other puddings were supposed to carry a statue up north. The entire thing was black and gray, except for the red gemstone on its hooves. Apparently, this mission was so secret, not even Princess Celestia could know about it. So, Bubba Crumple and his team hauled the statue all the way up to the frozen north. But the entire trip seemed to be cursed. One by one, the crew died off from illness, accidents, and even bandits. Applejack gave her hat a forlorn look. My ancestor was the only one to complete the trip. Nobody knows what happened up north. When he came home, he said that the crown owed him a debt, and that there were things no mortal poet could ever say. Applejack ended in a cryptic whisper. Twilight got up and began pacing the room. A mission so secret, not even Princess Celestia could know. Given by Duke Puddingcup. If my facts in history are right, Puddingcup was a close descendant of Chancellor Puddinghead. That fits with the overall lore the princess has told us. But what does the statue have to do with hoof guards? Spike asked. Sunset shifted under the confined seats. She had only been here a few hours and was ready to leave. Well, if the part about the red gemstones on the hoofs of the statue is true, then it isn't too much of a stretch to believe that maybe they weren't on the statue itself, but on the Hessidian hoof guards the statue was wearing. She gestured to the crown under her bed. Think about it. Both the Alicorn amulet and the Tempest crown have a red jewel on them. Rainbow striked her on Bandit's shoulder. It makes sense, I guess. Why put them on a statue? Seems like a pretty good idea to me if you don't want somebody else to wear it, Rarity said. Yeah, Twilight said, looking at the ceiling. What do you think he meant when he said there are no things immortals should see? Applejack placed her hat back on her head. No. If he did something, it was passed down. I pressed her lips together and narrowed her eyes at thought. After a moment, she shook her head and said, Regardless, this might give us something to go on. Good work, AJ. Rainbow gave a sarcastic clap. Yeah, good job, AJ. Now, is there any way you could be a little more specific when you say your ancestor went to the north? That could be anywhere. Sorry, Elias, that's all I'll know. Well, we can't just go digging around in the snow until we find something. Sunset said, there has to be another legend or myth we can cross-reference to narrow our search. What about the Crystal Empire? A small voice spoke up. Everyone turned to acknowledge Fireside. Remained quiet ever since he came into the room. The hoof guards were hidden over 1,000 years ago, and the Crystal Empire went missing for 1,000 years. Rainbow jumped to the air. Their library is full of recent books and stuff that can help us. She dove in and embraced Fireside in a tight hug. You're a genius. Twilight smiled. Well then, I guess we're taking a trip to the Crystal Empire. It had been a tough negotiation with the medical staff, but Sunset watched as Twilight managed to convince them to discharge the group that day. Police and Spike walked out of the hospital in the late evening, making a brisk trot for the train station. They agreed that none of them wanted to travel by airship ever again. They arrived at the station just as the sun set on the horizon on fire and stretched shadows across the world. The space's interior was bathed in orange and red, reflecting off the polished marble and giving it the appearance of melting glass. Like the rest of Las Vegas evening, it was extremely quiet. Twilight stopped to read the nearest timetable and hung her head with a soft sigh. The train that goes directly to the Empire from here. The fastest one makes stops at Hoofington and Tall Tale. Well, that's better than nothing, Sunset said before yawning. Apparently, being half conscious wasn't equivalent to being asleep. All Sun said that most of them were only running on a few hours of sleep dragged out over the last few days. So, when does the next train leave? Verity asked. Twilight looked across the list and jumped back, eyes bulging out in her head. In 10 minutes? She broke into the run for the ticket counter, sliding to a stop just before she hit. Sir, we need 8 tickets for the next train. The ticket salesman looked up from his magazine, staring at Twilight before a look of realization flashed across his face. Right away, Your Highness! He turned and reeled out 8 tickets for the dispenser and handed them to Twilight. Yeah, it'll be 400 bits, Your Highness, he said with uncertainty. Twilight took the tickets with her magic and hurried for the turnstiles. Don't worry, it'll be covered by the Royal Treasury, she called back. Everyone followed her onto the platform, where a lone train waited. The engine purred with life, and smoke climbed from the smokestack. The conductor stood at the doorway, checking his pocket watch. So undisturbed by Twilight, stuffing the tickets right under his nose. He snatched them with his hooves, glaring at Seepage Twilight before expecting each of them. When he finished, he gave a curt nod and allowed them passage. Twilight, you only became princess last week, Sunset said as he entered the compartment. Do you have access to the treasury yet? Twilight chuckled nervously. I should really hope so. Like the station, the train was quiet and relatively empty. Ponies were scattered about to themselves. In the back of the train was a completely empty compartment, where the group wasted no time in getting comfortable. They threw themselves onto the plush couches, sighing and yawning in relaxation. If we never have to come here again, it'll be too soon, Verity said with a huff. The train gave a shrill cry and lurched forward, gathering speed as it departed from the train station, rattled down the track. Sunset looked out the nearest window and watched as the world was set to fast forward. She could see the ocean sparkling with the last light of the sun in the distance, the bumpy hills that separated her from it. Was Vesper still trapped beneath the waves, or had she already broken free? Sunset looked at her faint reflection in the mirrors and surface, and wondered who she was staring at, herself or Vesper. She squeezed her eyes shut and curled up on her bed, expecting another moment when her body was tired, but her mind was awake with buzzing questions. Talking was kept to a minimum, with most of it coming from Twilight and Spike, as they decided what to put in their letter back to Celestia. Even with silence, Sunset found it hard to stay consistent with her thoughts. She jumped from one question to the next, exploring possible answers and scenarios before breaking off into another one. When the sun had completely removed itself from the world, an attendant with pillows and blankets came around, distributing them amongst everyone. After a round of good nights, they turned out the cabin lamps and tucked in for bed. Only the light of the moon served as guardian against the shadows. Sunset laid in bed, a sliver of moonlight falling across her face. The train rattled beneath her, giving her an occasional jolt or bump. However, Sunset never felt queasy from it. She silently thanked Rarity again, yet there was an uneasiness swishing around her stomach. It had been there ever since the Kiev and only gotten worse since, like a knot that had continually tightened. She turned onto her side, hair falling like a burning curtain over her eyes. She parted with a puff of air and stared out at the moon. Her mind was heavy, thick with thoughts and questions. Yet, with all of them muddled together and incoherent, it was almost like her mind was blank, just a thick fog sitting in her head. Sunset rolled over again, listening to the evening breathing of her friends. What did they think of her now? How much did they trust her? How much did she trust herself? Sunset flipped over and groaned into her pillow, knowing she wasn't going to get to sleep. She quietly got out of bed and reached for a saddlebag Twilight had placed in between the two of them. After slowly undoing the belt loop, Sunset reached her hoof inside and brushed against something cold. High-pitched laughter greeted her ears, and her entire body convulsed. She snapped her hugs back and tugged herself tight. Laughter voices clawing out in her mind. Crown had called out to her. Something inside her wanted to respond. Tempest's crown was meant to be worn by her. Its powers were hers to wield. Sunset brought a huff across her face, forcing those thoughts to the back of her mind. She looked up at Twilight's sleeping form and found that her back was to Sunset. Taking a deep breath, she reached into the bag again, her host lying down the side with trepidation. She felt the rough texture of rope and tugged on it, fizzing out her prize. Hourglass gleamed like gold in the moonlight. Sunset put it around her neck and felt a little bit of peace return to her. She could hear the sand slithering down to the bottom below and see the intricate designs that decorated the exterior. It was a step in the right direction, but Sunset still felt a knot in her stomach. Her episode just then had only made matters worse. She looked to the floor and watched the moonlight shudder along with the train. Air, she decided, would be good for her. Maybe staring at the stars in earnest would put her at ease. With the quietness of a mouse, Sunset tipped down to the compartment floor and opened the door, a blast of cold air greeting her. She quickly stepped out and shut the compartment door, straining herself outside the back of the railing of the train, away from sleeping friends. She leaned against the cold metal bars, listening to the train rattle on in the night. Wind pressed against her, sending shivers through her body. On both sides of her, the dark outlines of the trees rushed past, blurring together, making it impossible to tell where one tree ended and another began. The night air was cool and smelled of foliage tinged with engine smoke. Sunset looked up at the glaring stars overhead, counting all the constellations she could find. It was done half-heartedly, though. Sunset stopped after naming only a few. She rested her head on the bars and sighed. She had been wrong. Not even the stars could clear her head. So what are you? Changeling or an automaton? Or did Celestia miss me so much she made a clone of me? Vesper's words danced around her mind, feeling the turmoil in Sunset's heart. Who am I? Is my name really Sunset Shimmer? Or is Vesper just trying to screw with my head? She bare her head, trying to think. She had seen baby pictures of herself in her parents' house, and there were no gaps in her memory. She had to be Sunset Shimmer, right? She's lying. She has to be lying. Sunset, if you start singing Reflection from the lawn, I'm out here. Sunset tried to tell herself through clenched teeth. Vesper had claimed to be Celestia's former student. Something didn't align with the foreign memories inside Sunset's head. Could they both be incorrect in thinking you were both Sunset Shimmer? How is that even possible? There can't be two of me! Arrgh! Sunset yelled in frustration, throwing her hose up and slamming down on the steel platform. What's going on? Sunset wanted to scream louder, but didn't want to take to her friends and give them the cause for worry. She could already tell they were a little wary of her. She couldn't blame them. She was wary of herself now. Her own thoughts and emotions had begun to betray her. The sound of a sliding door behind her caused Sunset to seize up. Despite her desire to be alone, at some point he had heard her shouts of frustration. The door closed and Twilight appeared on the railing next to Sunset. The two of them sat just next to each other, staring up at the stars. Having trouble sleeping? Twilight asked. Sunset nodded. Yeah, sorry if I woke. Twilight casually waved it off before putting her hose on the railing, resting against him. You know, looking at constellations is a good way to get your mind off things. I tried. It didn't work, Sunset said moodily. And I know what you're doing, Twilight. Sunset, you can't keep everything bottled up. I'm not keeping anything bottled up. I just don't want to talk about it. That's practically the same thing. Just talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. Why do you keep doing this, Sunset? You don't mean me. You try to keep everything to yourself. Twilight finally raised her voice. Why can't you just tell me without having me to force it out of you? Why doesn't he just talk to me? Well, what do you want me to talk about? Sunset yelled. Where should I start? The fact that I have no idea what's going on anymore? Or should we discuss the other Sunset Shimmer running around and killing off ponies just because? What do you want me to say, Twilight? I'm more confused than you are. How am I supposed to stop a psychopath when she looks just like me? You said she could be lying about being Sunset Shimmer. But what if she's not, Twilight? I have memories, okay? Dreams and memories of being Celestia's student, being raised by her. I even have them ever since I came here. But they can't be right, because I'm supposed to be your student! Sunset didn't know when the tears had started falling down her face. They were coming down in rivulets now. I don't know what to believe anymore, Twilight. I don't know who I am anymore. What if she's right? What if I am just a changeling? What if everything I know has been a lie this entire time? Twilight, I don't want to be a bug. I hate bugs. I want to be me. Sunset was caught between sighing and hyperventilating as the epiphany sank in. She dropped to the floor, no longer able to support herself on her hose. All of her emotions poured out of her. Everything she had been building up since the night she had told everyone the truth and then some. Anger, confusion, sorrow, and fear all manifested itself into tears that poured down her face like a broken dam. She always hated crying. It made her feel weak and not in control of her emotions. Now that she had started, Sunset found she couldn't stop. It was like her first day with Twilight after the nightmare. There was a sensation of soft, feathery down wrapping around her, pulling Sunset into a tight hug. One of her Twilight's wings only made her cry harder as she braced her face deeper into Twilight's fur. Twilight held on to her, rocking her back and forth. Shh, Sunset. It's okay. Everything's okay. Twilight whispered in a soft, reassuring voice. You're not a changeling. How do you know? Sunset mumbled to Twilight's chest. I don't, Twilight said with an apologetic smile. But even if you were a changeling, it wouldn't matter to me. It wouldn't matter if you were an automaton or a clone, or whatever. It doesn't matter what you are on the outside. Twilight lifted a hoof and placed it on Sunset's chest, over her heart. To me, Sunset Shimmer is the girl on the inside, with a heart of gold, willing to do anything to help her friends, who's really good at magic and makes me proud to call her my student. Sunset's lower lip trembled, and she broke into a fit of tragic tears, throwing herself into Twilight's embrace again. Sunset's entire body was shaking from fear or the cold, she couldn't tell which. The hot tears were flowing from her eyes and kept her face relatively warm. However, and once again, soaked Twilight's shoulder. Every time Sunset thought she was near the end of her session, another wave of tears seemed to hit her, as she continued to cry into the night, with Twilight constantly consoling her. Sunset had come clean about her current feelings, a sensation of guilt persisted. She remembered back to the night she and Twilight were on the deck of the airship. As much as she knew it would hurt her, Sunset knew she couldn't find peace, so she told Twilight all the truth. Even the part Sunset herself had denied for so long. Beginning to use her vocal cords, Sunset said in between sobs, I hate her, Twilight. She decided not to be around the bush and ripped the bandage off. She felt Twilight squeeze harder. I understand, Sunset. I don't think I have ever met a pony I disliked so much either. No, not Vesper. Though Sunset couldn't deny the deep harbor of hatred for her other. I'm talking about Celestia. Twilight pulled back from her, dumbstruck. What? Sunset broke her engagement and turned away from her. I hate her, Twilight. I hate her so much, and I don't know why. I just do. Every time I see her, every time I think about her, I just get this feeling of loathing, and there's a voice that says horrible things about her, and I believe them. She wronged me, Twilight. She did something I can never forgive her. Sunset was breathing deep by this point, her rent formally over. She was now hung in the air, and all she could do was wait for Twilight to pass judgment on her. After a few seconds of silence, Sunset could take no more. She ran around, expecting to find Twilight guarding her in shock or anger. Instead, Twilight's focus wasn't on her at all. She was facing the door, staring at it like she could see through it. You know, she said testily, I would think my friends would know better than to eavesdrop on others. Sunset's ears twist, and sure enough, from the other side she heard Pinky hiss, See, I told you she had princess's ears. Another voice that Sunset identified as Applejack said in a panicked tone, Pinky, wait, don't open! The door burst open, and 5 ponies and a dragon spilled out onto the platform in a colorful jumbled heap. They all looked up at Twilight, each with an expression of guilt. Twilight wore an unamused frown. Her hoof tapped against the metal landing. Some pony mind telling me what's going on here? Applejack forced her way out from the bottom of the pile. Little sulks, it's partly my fault, Twilight. Also, Sunset get up to go outside. I just decided to go see if she was okay, and I saw you follow her. So I decided to give you all some privacy. She saw Sarah's expressive rarity. Then this one here got up and started sulking about the door, trying to eavesdrop on y'all's conversation. I was not eavesdropping, Rarity protested. I was listening with concern. Applejack rolled her eyes. Anyway, I got up to tell her to go back to sleep and stop being a noisy fuss bucket. Rarity clicked her tongue. We accidentally woke up our day, and, well, it just kind of spiraled out from there. I'm sorry, Twilight. Fluttershy bowed her head, becoming the picture of innocence. Oh, come on, Twilight, how can you be mean at that face? We didn't mean to eavesdrop, but when we heard Sunset crying, we started arguing whether or not we should interrupt you to show our support. Oh, I think you need help cheering somebody up when they're down. We just thought maybe Sunset might want some friends. That's it, you're not enough. Rarity took over, much of Fluttershy's relief. I think what Fluttershy is trying to say is, we're here for you, both of you, whenever you need it. I know this must be terrible on you, Sunset. I want you to know, no matter what happens, you have our friendship. For the third time that night, Sunset found tears rolling down her face. Her heart felt heavy with emotion, but now they were all positive ones. Joy, appreciation, love, friendship. Yes, she had friends before, but not like this. The group before her was special. The magic of friendship never felt like this to Sunset before. She wiped her eyes with a huff. Thank you. All you guys are amazing, and the fact you care so much means a lot. Twilight looked across her friends with a warm smile. Could you guys give us a few more minutes? We'll be back inside soon. Promise. They all nodded and retreated back inside, Pinky giving them one more encouraging smile before closing the door. Sunset looked over at Twilight. They really are wonderful. The best of the best. Twilight looked down at her host, her face becoming more sullen. So, all this time, you've hated Princess Celestia? Sunset could only nod. Was that the real reason you didn't tell her about why you came here? What you were trying to do? That was a good portion of it, yeah. Are you mad? Well. I said truthfully, mostly because he kept us secrets for so long, but... She looked up at Sunset, expressing softening. I'm sure there's an explanation for all this out there, somewhere. So that explains Vesper Radiance. Your feelings against Celestia, everything. We'll find it, I promise. So with a loud sniffle, Sunset finished clearing her face again and nodded. Yeah, we will. Sunset already knew a great place to start. The two returned inside, greeted by waiting friends. After assuring everyone she was all right, Sunset told them she was tired and wanted to go to sleep. It's going to be closer to the truth. Only one pony who could help her find all the answers that she wanted.